Welcome back, everybody. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your coffee, tea, biscuits, etc. Thank you for coming back so promptly. So, what are we going through next? Well, if you saw the agenda, it is data security, so stopping the data bleed. So, I guess I start with, why did we choose this topic out of the many that we could have done? And I was thinking about that, and for context, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, 3 out of 10 of the customer discussions we would have been having would have involved data security. It really just wasn't, for most of the customers we were talking to, a top agenda item. You roll forward 6-9 months, and certainly today, I'd say 8 out of 10 of the customers that we're dealing with are talking, yes, but data security is a concern. I think there's some definitely, and we'll touch on it, some parallels with the emergence or the acceleration of AI, or Gen AI as well, that's driven that. But data security, if you think of the theme of the day, redefining the basics, it's certainly redefined our basic conversation with customers on a daily basis. So in the next 20 odd minutes, we're going to be looking at why businesses are prioritizing data security, and we're going to be looking at what are the challenges some of them face, and how, from our experience working with them, how they are working through that and actually starting to solve the problem. Now with me, I've got more of the brains of the partnership in Julien. He's one of our senior cloud security architects, and he is working with many of our customers on a daily basis, having and leading these programs of work. So we'll be working through that. So let's look at, why is data security a rising concern for businesses? Well, first of all, I'm not going to labour on it, but cybercrime is a great business to be in. It's growing. There's more and more money in it. We look at the Cybersecurity Ventures report, 14 trillion by 28, up 15%, and that was up the year before. And there's no surprise then, you see again an increase. IBM called out an average 10% increase in the average cost of a data breach in 2024. That was up 10%. It was up, I think, 15% on the 2 years previously. Now, against that backdrop, you've then got data just exploding. 90% of the world's data generated over the past 2 years, and it's doubling every 4. So there's more and more complexity that we have to deal with. No surprise then, 50% of the businesses that were asked in the US report had already suffered significant revenue losses through data security incidents. On top of that, you've got challenges with privacy. I don't know, GDPR, CCPA in California, NIS2, DORA, all of them with more and more complexity. And last year as well, people are getting much more savvy, consumers, customers, people that businesses rely on to deliver the revenue. Almost 2/3, or almost 3/4 actually, of the world's population online. Yeah, and 70% of a poll of the UK were saying that those are actually very much concerned about data privacy. So businesses, it's a problem that's absolutely at their door. The report at the bottom there was actually from Allianz. They called out, with the businesses they worked with the last year, data breaches were the top concern. And I think that's pretty much the first time that it had been top billed in that way. So that's great. We know there's a problem, so why not just solve it? What's causing some of the problems? Well, we talked around just data explosion, but also digital transformation. And not just about moving to cloud. You've now got to move to cloud in a way that often has multiple cloud providers. You've got a much more complex edge. I think Rick's going to touch on some of OT, but IoT, you've got more edge devices doing more, and that creates a problem. The pandemic, thank you very much, caused a transfer or acceleration of people working in a different way. So, the report there, 20% of attacks, according to Forrester in 23, were targeting people in a home environment. So we need to think about that. Data privacy regulation, again, changing and with ever more increasing fines at the back end of it. So I've got on, 4 minutes without mentioning Gen AI. It's a major accelerant. I think reading the Times the other day, Sir William Hague and Tony Blair, it's become the future of our country, driving the fastest technical and scientific revolution in our history. US, whether you believe it or not, is there money, is there not? Stargate, 500 billion for an AI program. The UK, 15 million in the report for building out AI from the government. 50% of the businesses, therefore, absolutely, we need to get onto AI. But Gartner called out recently that already 40% of the businesses that embarked on that journey have suffered breaches related to AI, and a quarter of those were malicious. Now, even if you sort out your own domestic stuff, we don't work in an island. There's a more complex third-party supply chain as well to deal with. And if that wasn't enough, if we want to solve it, we want to get across those, you can't get the staff to deal with it. So IBM called out a 26% spike in severe cyber security specialist skill set shortages, and I'm sure all of you deal with that in some way. So those are the statistics, or some of them, and I guess I paint a pretty gloomy picture, as Graham said, and it's not really about doing that. I guess the good news is there is ways that we can combat that, very much so. And as I said, with me today, I've got Julien, and I think, Julien, can I ask you first, with the discussions that you're having with customers, what are they calling you in real terms? Where are they challenges, or what are the challenges that they're finding?
Well, Mark, our customers usually ask me one question, simple question. How do I comprehensively secure my company's data? And the answer is not a short one, fortunately, but the good news is that there's a common, sensible approach to it. Now, let me set the context, and I'm going to pick up on what you said earlier, just to summarize it just in a different way. Basically, we live in a digital world, right? Your company is already on the path to digital transformation, and that comes with its own set of problems. Problem number one, what does digital transformation mean for you? For data, it means that it has now become a valuable and sensitive asset. And this is what our customers are telling us. This is a top priority topic at the board level. So think about your confidential information that you've got, right? Trade secrets, confidential business processes, personal information from your employees, HR, financial, even sensitive customer data. You need to protect this, right? And it's not a question of when. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when you're going to get attacked. So the thing is, problem number two, we're seeing an increasing number of criminal activities. It's been mentioned before. We've got it coming from across the board, right? Not only just hackers, but now you've got insider malicious threats, right? Sold individuals who have malicious intentions, but you also have attacks across your third-party suppliers chain. And all of this, again, is going to ask the question, it's not if, it's when are you going to be prepared? Not just be prepared, but also do you have a proactive approach to it? Third problem, new and upcoming regulations. That's putting financial risk on your company if you don't comply with those new regulations. So now not only do you have to handle properly your data, you have to monitor it, you have to put in resilience, and even monitor your infrastructure to ensure you comply with those regulations to avoid fines. And on top of this, to add complexity to all of this, you probably already purchased a certain number of tools which adds to the complexity, right? So it's difficult to get a good global overview of what's happening because the bigger the complexity, the bigger the risk. So our customers, really, for our customers, data is a priority. And what they're telling us is that data security is not just an IT expense on the budget anymore. It's actually an integral part of risk management and business continuity. That's what we hear from our customers today.
So what's the journey you start to take them on then, when you're talking? So knowing that there's a problem, they've got these issues, how do we move forward?
Exactly. So we'd like to take a unified approach here. So when we look at what our customers are doing, what tools they're having, they actually have too many tools. That's the statement we have today. So did you know that in 2024 there was a security index question basically told us there's a staggering difference between organizations that are using 11 or more tools. They are basically seeing 45% more security incidents than organizations who have less than 10 security tools. And so we can have a look at this from different ways. There are different tools out there, right, to look at data security. But if you're on the Microsoft journey, and probably most of you are, our recommendation is that it makes sense to use the Microsoft approach because you're using a unified approach with a unified set of tools. There's not a business I met in the past year that hasn't told me I have budget or resource constraints, right? Everybody's under the same pressure. And basically, when we look at the data security platforms out there, Forrester actually puts Microsoft on top of that leading range. And also, the market share is quite staggering. It's almost a quarter of all the data security platforms used out there. So how does the Microsoft approach work? Quite simply, I'll have to read it. It's a unified approach to automatic data classification, policy management, analytics, and APIs. Quite complex, but I'll try to break it down for you. It comes in 4 building blocks, right? So basically, this approach is built on Microsoft Purview, and Purview is part of Microsoft 365. The first building block really is knowing your data. What Purview will help you do is gain back proactively control of your data. It will help you set up the controls and the protection to detect and respond to data threats, like data theft or data loss. It will allow you to securely share and exchange sensitive information while protecting that information. And last but not least, it will also help you build in or put in together a data governance that makes sense across this platform.
Okay, so you're speaking to the customers, we've got a consensus, it makes sense, it's logical, commercially right to go down a unified approach with a unified platform to some regards, and then you say, well, okay, the journey. So can you tell me, how do you, for businesses out there and starting it, where do you start with getting to, as it says up here, knowing your data?
Absolutely, so we usually recommend the crawl, walk, run methodology. So first of all, step 1, you want to start with understanding your data, where it resides, where it lives. So you really want to understand and lay down the foundation for data visibility. That's the key thing here. As Purview is part of Microsoft 365, it already has natively access to your data in the Microsoft environment, but also on top of this, it can connect to third-party tools so that you can have a really great overview of all your data estate. Now, there are different things that you want to do with starting to understand your data. So Purview allows you to discover that data automatically. Once you know that you've gathered all your data, you want to start by classifying and identifying that data. What's important here is that you have really the right tools, basically, to provide you insights into where your data resides. And usually the most complicated things is understanding where your sensitive data resides and how you want to prioritize protecting that data. So by basically looking at what our customers are telling us, they're telling us that the data is scattered across the company. It's difficult to have a good overview of where the data is. It's easy to create data, but it's more complicated to govern it and to manage it, basically. But you also can't protect what you don't know, right? So you really need to discover what that information is. So when you start looking at that data, there's going to be a huge amount of work because you have a lot of data scattered across your company. Now, Purview helps you basically discover that data automatically. It also helps you classify that information with over 200 data types out of the box. And you can even use machine learning, actually, to automatically discover data types which go beyond those 10 types. As you know, we all know that data gathering is a difficult exercise. What we're seeing and what we're hearing from our customers is that they would like a simple solution, right, that really helps them save time. And this is what Purview does. It does save time in basically allowing you to gather information, automatically classifying them, and then you're able to really see what's inside your data estate. So identifying, classifying, and then understanding your data, that's step number 1.
Okay, so we're crawling at that point.
Yes,
okay, so we want to get walking, yeah? So I suppose the first thing is if we start to know what's in and how it's set up and the structure of it, and we've got some visibility, I guess the next thing really is about trying to understand and monitor what's going on. So how do customers work with that and using Purview, etc.?
Absolutely. So once you've identified it and labeled your data, you want to start monitoring it. So basically the first step was looking at your data at rest, and now you want to understand how it lives across your organization. So you want to put in place monitoring, and in that view, Microsoft 365, Purview provides you with sensitivity labels. And this is basically where it lives in Microsoft 365. The platform will actually automatically detect that type of data and apply real-time policies to prevent things like data theft, data leaks, or accidental oversharing of information. Now, labeling data is actually the easy part. Talking to our customer, what we discover is that adoption is the difficult part. The difficult bit lies in basically setting a clear set of rules. So ensuring that your corporate citizens understand properly your data security concept, and that this is translated into a clear set of rules. Now, setting those rules will get you a lot of alerts. And that basically will tell you one thing, is that you will need to refine, right? And when we're talking about getting alerts, we all know that we've got resource constraints. So if you are getting those alerts and you don't have the resources, we recommend you to basically work with your SOC or operations center to basically proactively mitigate the risks and proactively manage those alerts, because you don't want to let them sit in one place. So, in summary, early detection of those threats reduces the risk, right? And labeling, adoption, and a clear set of rules is step number 2.
Okay, so assuming the corporate citizens are doing what they should do, we know that's not always easy, assuming the monitoring and the facilities to monitor are there, then you're walking well, and we want to get running. So at the point of running, it's really, I suppose we all know, yeah, we've talked about it, that it's great to understand what's going on, but even better is to drive the right prevention methodologies and techniques to stop it from being an incident in the first place. So maybe share a little bit about how businesses are starting to do that run phase.
Absolutely. So you've identified and labeled your data, so you know how it works, how it lives, but the next step is really to be proactive about it. So that's where the platform with Purview allows you to go a bit deeper into that. So did you know by 2024, 57% of companies globally deemed that excessive data access was a #1 data challenge in their company? And this is often due to oversharing and the data security access being too lax, basically. So what we want to do with that platform is basically leverage what's being offered here. And basically, you can use and leverage AI-driven insights. So basically, the platform will be able to detect abnormal activity and apply consistent and real-time policies in order to avoid things like data theft, data leaks, or even other types of different attacks. Could be malicious insider threats, for example. So what you want to do here is you want to proactively manage those policies. It's one thing to define them, but it's also another thing to make sure that they adapt to your company and that they're properly fit into the context of your company. So what you want to do is to implement consistent policies, refine them, and then leverage the real-time insight to proactively manage those threats and those risks. And that's step number 3.
Okay. So we're running at that point.
We are running.
Data security, we know what's out there, we're monitoring it, and we're even driving the right preventative controls. But we talked at the beginning about, it's not only that, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff around compliance, governance, and of course, just monitoring. One of the big accelerants for all of this is around Gen AI. So what can be done once the business is running to start driving improvement in that sort of area or visibility?
Yeah, you actually want to go behind security and basic compliance. There's 3 examples I can give you here. The first one is basically Purview complements really well Microsoft's XDR, so the extended detection response that is built into the platform. So what it does, it basically adds a layer of data governance, and this will basically enhance threat detection and incident response across the security ecosystem. The second is the data governance. So you can basically build a unified data governance. That is basically looking at doing automation with compliance. So if you've got data which is subject to regulatory compliance, Microsoft Purview can help you basically built-in templates automatically adhere to those regulatory compliance requirements and also do automatic data retention, which is really nice. And the third point is about discovering data at scale. So basically leveraging the AI insight and the generative AI, which is built into Purview, you can basically identify risks where you didn't see them before. It's all about saving you time, letting the machine do the work for you. And so if you had to look at a dashboard of 1,000 of alerts and 1,000 of threats coming up, that's where the machine learning comes in and helps you really provide real-time insight into what you need to do proactively to that. And last but not least, Microsoft just announced that within Purview now, you can actually extend the protection coverage of GenAI in two ways. One way is basically monitoring what type of GenAI tools are being used within your company. And the second one is making sure that the data that's used by those GenAI tools is actually secure and clean. So when running basically at full pace, Purview gives you access to clean and secure data that's really able to allow you to use innovation in tools like AI or your classical business cases for AI.
Okay, so I mean, we talk about the crawl, walk, run, and I guess a lot of the drive for that is that we speak to a lot of businesses that are like, I just don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the time, this is a big problem, but I know I've got to do it. So is there any sort of, from that, what is the advice that you would tend to typically give? Because we've run through a number of these programs with some businesses. So what would you say has been the sort of the watchwords or the guidance that would be sound?
Yeah, so what our customers are doing is simple approach, right? You start by planning, you start by building step by step, you iterate to basically get you there. Don't try to boil the ocean. The objective here is to get you there in a simple way. It's just more consistent if basically all this can be done as a journey, and we're here to help you, of course. So what our customers are telling us is basically that no matter the complexity, we're able to run workshops to help you with little gripping to help you start with that journey. And so really don't hesitate to come to us and get in touch.
Okay, so we've only got 1 or 2 minutes for any questions, but we'll be around later at the networking afterwards and at the coal holes if there are any questions. But is there any questions burning right now that we can help address?
What about data outside the Microsoft ecosystem, like CRM tools, Salesforce or NetSuite? What's your recommendation on protecting that?
So Microsoft is already building full APIs to these tools. So it's really easy to integrate that into the tools, but it's definitely something we can take it offline and basically talk a bit more about the complexity of this. It is technical, but it's definitely doable.
How advanced is the machine learning element of the tagging of the types of data? How much work do customers have to put into themselves to make sure that they're comprehensively coming up with their own tags for data?
There's no easy answer on this. So as you know, the machine learning environment is being progressed and refined on a daily basis. It really comes down to your business case, or how complex is your organization, how much data you need to ingest, and basically, how complex your rules are going to be. It usually takes our customers 4 to 6 months to basically get them up and running on those kinds of projects. But we're really here to help you understand, what are the different drivers, and also understand the priorities with you on how to set this properly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Aurélie. Thank you, Julien.
Thank you.
And at this stage, no, carry on. We'll always take applause.